Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Wild and Wonder podcast. I am your podcast host, Nick Robertson. I'm the founder and owner of Wild Eyed Creative Co., a company that specializes in helping photographers do brands and websites to help them get to the level that they want to get to with their photography businesses. In today's episode, we're going to talk about website platforms. There's lots of good ones out there. There's lots of garbage ones out there. So we're going to talk about the main four today that I recommend. These are the ones that we'll use depending on the client's needs. So let's get into it. So the first one I love to talk about is Squarespace. I built my entire business within the first 2 years on Squarespace. I was specifically a Squarespace website designer. Now, I had found Squarespace back in like 2013-ish. And I built my own photography website on Squarespace. Now, originally and prior to that, I had actually used the Showit platform, which we'll get to, and had built my website on there. But at that point, I just didn't love it. And so I ended up switching over to Squarespace and fell in love with it, built my website on there, and then had built some websites for a couple different friends on the Squarespace platform. And so that's how I kind of got my feet wet with it. But when I launched Wild Eyed back in 2019, I decided to pick back up on Squarespace versus some of these other platforms because Squarespace allowed me to kind of flex a little bit with some design skills, which my design skills weren't like super great at that point. So when I say flex, I mean, I was able to do things I thought were really cool at that point. But it had a platform that just made sense to my brain. With the grid structure and system, you know, they run off like a 12 block grid system. And so the way that scales up and down, the way that it just worked just made sense to me. And so I dove in head first and started doing websites on Squarespace. And within that first year, I even taught myself a bunch of CSS so I could do more customizations and things like that. And through the process of using Squarespace, really since 2013, I just really fell in love with the ease of use. For me, anyway, I know a lot of people kind of have some problems with like getting used to it, and there's definitely a learning curve. There's a learning curve on any website platform, but with Squarespace, like it just made sense. And so diving into that, learning some CSS so I could do some customizations. And since 2013, you know, they've released new versions and done some new things with it. And you know, they added the e-commerce, which was really, really cool. And then they added like the marketing platform and then their analytics. So it was really cool to have one place where I can run every aspect of my business as a photographer, as a solopreneur. It just made it nice to have everything under one roof, one email, one password. It was right there. It looked good. It looked clean. It looked professional. It worked like it was supposed to. I didn't have to worry about security issues or anything like that. So Squarespace is where I started. I still highly recommend Squarespace. I think that they're a fantastic company. They're doing really cool things. They're doing really, really good things with their web design. But my only kind of nitpicky gripe is that as I developed my design skills and started to learn more about web and developing for the web, it became pretty apparent pretty fast that like most Squarespace designs are pretty vanilla, unless you do a lot of custom coding, which is what I did. And so it ended up being fine. But from a single user point perspective, you know, if I come in and do a website for you, I'm going to throw all of this custom code in there to make it look and do what we want it to do. And aside from you swapping out pictures and verbiage, it takes the user friendliness of Squarespace kind of away, depending on what we do with that customization on the back end. You know, I've had it before where we need to shift some of those blocks around or do some different things, and then it looks good. But then if you want to go in and switch some of your body copy out, like you would have to go turn off the CSS first, so you could then go back and get into that and do what you needed to do with it. So it took some of the user friendliness away, which was kind of a bummer. But as far as super creative designs go, though, you can still do a lot of really cool stuff on Squarespace. Again, that grid system allows you to really get things that are clean and classic, and really, really straightforward. But if you're looking for more of like a very custom bohemian boutique kind of vibe with gradients and textures and overlap and asymmetrical designs and stuff like that, Squarespace probably isn't the best place to go. So I still highly recommend Squarespace. I think that is a really, really good platform, especially if you're in the first few years of your photography business. It's got everything that you need and then some. And so that's why I still really highly, highly recommend Squarespace. Okay, the next platform is Showit. So when I did my very, very first website ever, it was on the Showit platform. Some photographers that I was learning from and studying at that time, Zach and Jody Gray, they were raving about Showit. I think it had just launched back then, and this was in 2011 or 2012. And so I was like, well, they used it, so I'm going to go use it. So I hopped on there, built my first website on the Showit platform, and I don't know if it's because I couldn't figure it out or if it was because it was so new that it was still pretty limited, but I just couldn't get what I was after on the Showit platform at first. So that's why I ended up switching to Squarespace. But then a few months ago, I actually made the hop from Squarespace back over to Showit. It's something that I'd had clients ask about for a long time if I offered Showit websites. And it's something I always kind of held off on because I was really, really loyal to Squarespace, which I still am. Still love Squarespace. But a few months ago, switched over to Showit, jumped in both feet first, and started getting my hands dirty with learning the platform, understanding its limitations, what it can do, what it can't do, all of that kind of stuff. And I have to say I'm pretty darn impressed. I miss being able to have everything under one roof. But I will say what I can do design-wise is so much better, and it's so much easier for me. I'm so much like less restricted, creatively speaking. It's been really freeing to be able to design over on the Showit platform. And then it's also just like, it's way faster. Once I learned the tools, all of the stuff that I spent the brunt of my time custom coding over on Squarespace, I can just do inside Showit. No custom code required. I can do whatever I want. And so there was a site that I did for a client a couple years back, and it's no longer a website. I think she changed careers, but I went and looked at it again, and it took me probably about 3.5 weeks from the inception of the design until I was able to get the design implemented and then coded and ready to launch. It took about 3, maybe 4 weeks to get it all done, just because of all the custom code. It was kind of like an asymmetrical design, had some cool things going on, a lot of overlapping. There was a lot of custom code that went into it, and it took me 3 or 4 weeks to get it done. I regathered all of the assets and got it done in 3 hours on the Showit platform, which was incredible. I laughed so hard. But yeah, so something that took me 3 to 4 weeks over on Squarespace took me 3 to 4 hours to get done on Showit, which was just absolutely incredible. So I don't really have too many gripes when it comes to Showit. Again, as a designer, it's fantastic. I think one of my biggest hangups is just my brain is used to how Squarespace works. Because again, Squarespace is on a grid system. And so each grid works, or each block in the grid, so it's a 12-block grid, each one of those blocks works off of percentage. So as your screen gets bigger, your content scales up and vice versa. The smaller it gets, the smaller your stuff will scale. Show doesn't quite work like that. And so for me, I know that mobile is really important, and having the ability to do mobile in a completely separate layout is incredible. I would say a big majority of the custom coding that I did over on Squarespace was, once you get down past really like a 13-inch laptop, Squarespace's breakpoints just kind of started to fall apart, and it would just do really wonky things with your design. And so I would have to go in and do all of these like custom breakpoints, these media queries, to like change font sizes and move things around and do different things, just so it would look good when you got down smaller. On Show It, it condenses so well. And again, you have a totally separate layout that you can do on mobile, which is amazing. But scaling up, not so much. Again, it doesn't work off of that grid system, so it doesn't scale like I'm used to. And so when I put my design in there, looks really, really, really good at 1200 pixels wide, like a 13-ish inch laptop. And down below, it's fantastic. But you start scaling up above that, and then all of a sudden you've got all of this space. Now, you can do edge locking and different things like that, but one of the things I've had to do just a little bit is just a little bit of custom code to basically just make my fonts bigger, just to fill up more space on some of my designs. Because while people do, was it like 75 or 85 some percent of websites are viewed on mobile, and so you really need to have a mobile first mentality. However, when somebody's getting ready to make a $4,000 or $5,000, $10,000 decision, they're not doing that on their phone. They're probably on a laptop, or if you're a photographer, before you get ready to drop 5 to 10 grand on a designer, you're going to be on your desktop. And so for me, it's really important to have my stuff look good on mobile, but it needs to look good on like a 27-inch iMac too. So there's some things there I'm still kind of like learning and working out, but so far it's been pretty good. I've had to change my approach to design just a little bit, but it's been pretty good. And so I'm in love with Show It right now. Like it's been really, really good. Their customer support has been phenomenal. I've done a couple other small sites for some clients, and they're loving it. It's super easy to change content. Like it's been really, really good. All right, the next platform. Now, I don't have any experience personally with this platform. I've been flirting with it for a long time. I've looked into it quite a bit, watched a lot of YouTube videos on it. But that platform is Webflow. Webflow is kind of the newer kid on the block, and they're making quite a name for themselves. So they function as a closed off CMS. So it feels like it's Squarespace or Show It or, something like that, but it's not a closed off CMS. And it actually is laid out, from what I understand, like it's really user friendly, but it's designed as if you were a developer. So like when you go to select certain options, it's going to ask you if you want to use block or flex or position absolute or position relative. Like it's got a lot of those terms in there. So if you're a developer, if you've been in the web design space for a while, like it's going to click really, really easy for you. But it also has just a ton of really, really cool things that you can do with it, that most other platforms don't have, or if they do have, you have to use 20 different third-party plugins to make happen. Whereas you can do a lot of that natively on Webflow. I've seen some really, really cool websites done on Webflow. I've been really tempted to take a course and learn the platform and implement it. But for photographers, I will say it's pretty robust. There's a lot that you can do there. There's a lot of different options, and it might be overwhelming if you're just starting out. But if you're a photographer that's been in business for, 5+ years, and you're building an empire where like you're shooting, maybe you've got a couple of different associate shooters, you sell presets, you do workshops and retreats, and you kind of have like this empire that you're building where you need your website to do a lot of different things. Webflow would probably be a pretty good option because there's a lot of things that you can do natively without the use of third-party plugins that are really, really cool. And I think we're going to be hearing about Webflow a lot more. Price-wise, they're all about the same. They're all within $20 to $40 a month, all of these platforms. And so for what you can do and what you can get with Webflow for the cost, like it's pretty darn cool. Okay, so the last platform, the one that you guys have probably all heard of, it's kind of been the go-to for most professional web designers for years now. But that is WordPress. WordPress kind of has been the undisputed king for a very long time. And there's a couple of reasons for that. But the thing about WordPress that makes it so powerful is that WordPress kind of functions as a central hub that allows you to plug other things into it. So you can literally do pretty much anything that you want. And that's what makes it so powerful. Like you can have kind of your central hub with your basic website, and then contacts forms and galleries and animations and just anything that you can think of, you can plug into WordPress to make your site do whatever you want it to do. It's really, really powerful, and that's why a lot of professional businesses put their websites on WordPress. But kind of like Webflow, for most entrepreneurs, most solopreneurs like us, photographers, designers, musicians, things like that, WordPress is kind of the equivalent of taking a chainsaw to your Thanksgiving turkey. It is amazing, but it, for most people, is overkill. Again, just the amount of things that you can do with it, the amount of options that it offers. Like, if you're trying to DIY your website on WordPress with zero experience, you will pull your hair out. There's just so much to do, so much to think about, so many different things that you have to pull together to get your website to do what you want it to do. I typically don't recommend it for photographers if you're going to DIY it. However, again, if you fall more on the 5+ years, you shoot consistently, you have associate shooters, you sell presets, you do workshops and retreats and webinars, and like, you've really got kind of an empire where you need your website to be a little bit more robust, and you're going to go out and pay a web designer or developer to do all this stuff for you, and you're already expecting to spend $10,000 and beyond on your website, more than likely your developer is going to put you on WordPress, because there's just going to be some things that they're going to be able to do with the advent of those plugins that you just can't do really on the other platforms, or at least very well. And so again, WordPress is awesome, but for most people, most photographers, it is major overkill. So out of these 4 platforms right now, my personal favorite is the Showit platform. Being able to design quickly and creatively has been so good for me personally, but it's also been good for my clients because they get their websites faster. Things just move along quicker, and it's just a more enjoyable process overall. With Squarespace, I definitely spent a lot of time breaking keyboards and smashing my head against the wall, trying to figure out how to get something to do what I wanted it to do, because it didn't do it natively. So if you're looking for an amazing platform that allows you to be creative, that's relatively simple to use, again, there's a learning curve with all of these platforms. Like, if you're not a designer, there's going to be a learning curve, and it's going to be a little bit stressful. But there are some companies out there for all of these platforms that do templates. And so again, if you're just starting out, you can go snag yourself a template and rock with that bad boy and make some really good strides with your photography business. Or you can hire it out custom on all of these platforms. There's amazing designers that are on Squarespace and Showit and WordPress and Webflow. So it really just depends on what you're doing with your business and what your business needs are right now and what they might be in the future. And a good designer is going to help you kind of figure out, well, if this is where you want to be in the future, this is probably going to be the best platform for you. So anyway, guys, those are the 4 awesome platforms that I do recommend, with Showit being the top platform for photographers, solopreneurs, small businesses. But if you have any questions on these platforms, please let me know. Reach out to me in the DMs on Instagram, or shoot me an email, or drop by the website. But until next time, guys, I'll see you later.